Hi, this is 𝐂𝐎𝐒 from 𝐂𝐎 Venture.
This is Dan from Vagabond Awake.
And today I got a chance to interview Dan in the Philippines.
Yeah, we're on the beach as you can see, and we're enjoying the afternoon. And
why are the people retiring overseas?
for different reasons. Some people are adventurous. I put myself in that column, and other people, and also I like to save money. You can take the same money outside. I'm from the United States. You can take the same money outside of the United States, and you can often get a better life, a more interesting life. If you spent your whole life in one country and you travel, life can be more interesting, and it's cheaper.
When did you leave the USA and where have you lived?
I left the USA in 2007, and during my entire life, I've lived in 67 countries, most of them since I left the USA in 2007. And so I have a really good feeling of what it costs to live in various places, because I have not lived in the USA now for 16 years. So I've been paying overseas expenses all that time, and that's why I feel I know a lot about this subject.
What are the main things people need to be prepared for moving overseas?
You know, when you've gone overseas, if you're like most people that live in the West, when you go overseas, whether it's to, South America or Southeast Asia, Europe, you're often going there on vacation. And so you're buying like a package that has a hotel room, maybe meals, airfare. But if you're going to live overseas, most people can't. I certainly cannot sustain that kind of budget where you're blowing $1,000 or $2,000 a week, including airfare. And so when you move overseas, you have to learn how to live more like a local. You rent more local places, you eat in more local kind of restaurants, you cook at home, you live more like a local so you can maintain that budget instead of a vacation budget. So money is one of the first things you have to learn. And then also, I'm what's called a slow traveler. I don't just stay in one place, I move around. I have to learn how to move from place to place and save money. So I'll take buses when I'm going from city to city, or train, or minivans, and I don't fly. When I was in my working years, I was flying everywhere. But if you start flying everywhere as you travel around the world, it gets quite expensive. So you have to learn transportation, you have to learn accommodations, and you have to learn to eat for much more reasonably. Once you do that, you're able to maintain a lower budget, and you're able to live all over the world in fascinating places, or just pick one place you really love and just stay in that place and then visit other places from there. It depends on what you like to do. So since I've been doing this so long, and since I started a YouTube channel, people started to ask me questions because I had all these experiences and I'd lived overseas for so long. And they would start asking me questions like, what do you do about banking? Or what do you do, where do you find the best deals on renting? And how about visas? What kind of visa are you getting? How are you finding apartments? How are you finding local restaurants? When you're in a country that doesn't speak English, how do you find food to eat? And when you go into a grocery store in a foreign country and you look on the shelves and you don't recognize the food, there's all these things that come up when you try to live overseas. Mm-hmm. And as I've put out videos over the last really 5 years about how to live like this, people have asked questions. And so I've created all these reports that answer these various questions. And now I have over 200 reports that not only include the best places to live in the world for cheap, because I've lived there, I know, I put my feet on the ground now for 16 years. And by the way, 𝐶hunk's been with now for 6, traveling to all these places. And so I have reports about the best places, but also all the little tricks and tips you need to know in order to live this kind of lifestyle without busting your budget. But once I got like 200 or 300 reports up there, people started saying to me, Dan, you have so many reports, I don't know which ones to read in what order. And I don't know, like, when I'm thinking about move overseas, what do I think about first, and how do I pick what country, and so when there's a body of information, mm-hmm. It only becomes useful to you if you know when to read what information. So I listened to that person, and I thought, you know what, they're right. And so I created this thing called the Retire Overseas course. And what it does is it looks at when you need to know the information. When you're in your home country and you're thinking about where to go, you need certain information. Mm-hmm. Then when you're deciding, you've narrowed it down to 2 or 3 countries that you want to go visit to find out what it really feels like to be in that country. Then that's different information you need to know to pick those 3 or 4 countries. And then when you're going to buy your ticket and fly over there, there's a different kind of information you need to know. And then once you get your feet on the ground and you're trying to establish what your budget will be in that country, there's even another set of information you need to know. What are the rents going to be? What's it going to cost me in food? What about transportation? So all these other things you need to accumulate at each stage of making a decision that you want to live overseas or versus living in your home country, and what it's going to cost. And then once you live there, a whole nother set of problems come up once you live there in day-to-day life, like socializing, making friends, dating. And so all of these reports have a temporal aspect to them when they're important to you. And so I created this course called the Retire Overseas course, and it's a 7-lesson course that you learn about all the issues that are come up. And you go through it once, listen to it, it's videos. I don't know, it's maybe 6 or 7 hours, and that will tell you where to go as you get questions. And then each of the lessons has an index into the reports, so you know where to go to get the information. And so that's kind of how my business evolved. And now I have a membership. And by the way, we're running a sale right now in case you're interested in all this information and how to access and what it costs. But the next question people ask me, you know what, I think I'm going to need a little more than even though I'm cutting my costs in half, I'm worried about inflation and what's going to happen over 5 or 10 years. And so I'm wondering, is there anything I can do? I know what my Social Security check is, or I know what my pension's going to be, and it's okay for now, but I'm worried about maybe 3-5 years or 5 to 10 years. Is there anything I can do to make extra money? And so one of the things that I realized when I was putting this together was that this was my hobby, and people were asking me questions about my hobby. But most older people like me, I'm 62 now, we have something in our life that we've learned over many years, whether it's a hobby or it's something we learned when we were in our working years, or it's something we've learned something about, and maybe we don't know everything. But if you start an online hobby and you start to share information on YouTube, for example, or other social media, eventually you begin to get an audience, because people type things into Google or Bing or YouTube, and they ask questions. And if that information is there and people can find it, then you can begin to create an income on YouTube, for example. And so that was the second half. The first half is, how do I live for less? And then the second half was, maybe I need a little more. I'm worried about inflation. And so I started another course called the Hobby Income course that teaches you how to make a little bit of extra money. And the beauty about that course is it's great for retirees that are thinking about living overseas. You know, why is that? It's because it's an online course. So you don't have an office, you don't have a phone, you have no employees. You're sharing information, and when people buy the information, they just download it or watch a video or take a course, whatever it is you're doing. And so my Hobby In course helps you decide what they call it a niche, what your hobby is going to be, and then it helps teach you how you create content for that niche that's interesting to people, to find your audience, and then how you repurpose some of that content and create new content to put in either some kind of membership or a class that people can come to and learn from you, your expertise over the years.
Good.
And all of that's included in the membership.
We put our feet on the ground. This is a very good deal, because we put our feet on the ground, we go to search the apartment without an Airbnb, without, like in the Facebook, we go there and deal with the owner, bargain the price, and then provide the information to you.
And then the other thing is we don't like having a car. So once in a while we'll rent a scooter or whatever. Once in a while, like right now we're in the Philippines, we ride these trikes, or we ride the jeepneys, all the local stuff, buses. So we get a place that's local, it's close in. So you have restaurants around you, coffee shops, you have nightlife, you have often beaches like this. And so these are the spots that are fun to be. And so when you're not only when you're finding out what country you want, but what part of that country, those are the reports.
And also you have the food choices. You have a vegetarian choices then, and you have a meat eater and drinking people like me. Yeah. So you got those places that to go and have fun, or watching people. Right. Yeah.
And honestly, I think our channels, Chung has one, Hobo Ventures, mine's Vagabond Awake, and my membership site's called Vagabond Buddha. I think we're entertaining and we're also informational. We're providing you with information.
What the main thing people need to prepare for moving overseas?
Yeah, they need to make sure they have enough money. Part of the course teaches you what's called an exploratory visit, where you pick a few countries, you come over, you put your feet on the ground, you verify what your budget's going to be by looking at what a place is that you want to rent. We'll look at the restaurants you want to eat in. Look at this where you want to shop, and do the math, add it up, and now you know it's not just some pie in the sky thing. It's your numbers, and then you confirm it for yourself.
Yes.
And then you either have enough or you don't. And if you have enough, great. And if you're worried about inflation, you need a little more, you have the hobby income course for that.
Okay. So
those are the two things. So budget and making sure you have enough money, and if you don't, make it a little more.
Okay. So the next question is, what are some examples of minor detail people may not be thinking about when they are planning to move overseas?
Okay, I didn't have a mentor when I left the United States in 2007. And so I have personally experienced all of this myself. Often when you ask me questions in the notes below these videos, or when you email me and ask me questions, some of this stuff I've done personally. I've been in the hospital in a foreign country. I've had my ATM card go missing when I'm in a foreign country and I only had one ATM card. I mean, I've done all of these things, and so all of my reports are talking about what I did in those circumstances. Banking, whether or not you should buy real estate overseas, why you should not try to create your old life in a new country, why you need to be interested in the culture that you're in order to make it satisfying in retirement. Just hundreds of little tips. And the funny thing is that I forgot much of this, even though I lived it, but it wasn't until I put up a YouTube channel and started sharing, and you guys came and asked questions, I remembered what I had forgotten. And I was able to immediately write reports about it. And so this information's come out of you, and that's why this is like a community that's actually useful. And you're invited to ask those questions, whether it's by email or in videos. And I make lists of these things, and I do new reports all the time.
So the next question is there a process you recommend that people follow when moving overseas? Yeah,
see, I think that my membership is probably worth thousands of dollars. I know how much money I wasted figuring all this out, and it's literally thousands of dollars. Over from about 2007 through about 2016 on travel and everything, I probably spent a couple $100,000 or more, maybe, I don't know exactly. But I've learned everything by trial and error.
And you share the experience that people will no need to be...
They don't have to make those mistakes again. Don't buy real estate when you first get to a new country.
Yeah.
And everyone's going to try to get you, oh, real estate's going to double, it's going to triple. It's not like the US. You need to buy today. But you move to a country, you buy it a month or two after you got there, or maybe even when you're on vacation for 2 weeks, and now you own a piece of real estate and you're there 6 or 7 months later, and you do a weekend trip to some other city or to a country nearby, and you're like, wow, this place feels more like home. Don't buy right away. Move there, put your feet on the ground and rent. They're all furnished apartments, and don't pack your stuff and ship it to the first place. There's just hundreds of ideas that I share in this report.
Yeah.
I will save you thousands of dollars if you take this course.
Why do some people get overwhelmed when they start thinking about moving overseas?
The reason you get overwhelmed and you're sitting there going, it's too much, I can't do it, is because you're trying to imagine 100 steps. And you can't do that because you haven't been there yet. You don't have your feet on the ground. You haven't solved one problem after another. And with my course, with my 2 courses and all the ebooks, you're solving problems as you need them. So it's sort of like, no, you don't want to take a step to this spot unless you know something about it. So you learn a little bit about that problem, and then you take a step, and you're like, it was okay. And then as you start taking one step after another, you have some confidence. And you never make a decision to move to a new country until you've been there, until you've done an exploratory visit. And you never decide to sell your house until you've first gone and done some exploratory visit and say, can I live overseas? Is it really as adventurous as I think it is? And so what you're doing is you're trying to imagine success, and you can't do it that way. You have to stay where you are now and do one step at a time. And that's what the course takes you through.
How do they get themselves unstuck?
The same way. You quit trying to solve all the problems before you leave your home country. You can't solve them all. What you really want to do early in the game is find out, are you interested? So in chapter 1 of my Retire Overseas course teaches you what the chapters cover. Chapter 2 It teaches you about overseas curiosity. Like, are you curious? Like, you shouldn't move to a foreign country if you're not curious about other cultures or other foods.
Yes.
If you're just going to save money, you're probably not the right kind of person. You probably should stay in your home country. You know, maybe the only exception to that is if you just don't have enough money to have a decent life in your home country. But you really need to develop a cultural interest, and it'll be in certain cultures. Some of you will be interested in Southeast Asia. Other ones will be interested in South America or Central America. Other ones will be interested in Eastern Europe or whatever. So there's culture that will be interesting to you, and you do that by finding out, maybe watching videos of each country, see what the food's like, see what the streets are like and whatnot. And so to get unstuck, you need to do one step at a time and quit thinking about solving all the problems at once. And don't try to solve a problem that's 10 steps ahead of you. You don't need to worry about selling your house yet. You just have to figure out what cultures you're interested in, and you need to plan 3 or 4 of them and then go visit and see. Spend more than you can't just spend a week or 2 there. Try to spend a month or something if you can, and you say, am I really interested in this place? And then you'll understand, hey, I want to live there. I really do. And then you can think about whether or not to sell your house. But I wouldn't even sell it then. Then what I recommend you do is you hire a property manager, rent that house out, furnished. You can usually get 30 or 40% more for it furnished, get a really good property manager. And the rents from that house will, if you have a house, will help pay for some of your expenses in the new country. And then go live there for 3 months, 6 months. See if it takes. Just because you go on a 2-week vacation, it may not take. And the other thing is, when you do exploratory visit, you just don't go to that one city. You go to other cities and see if this one doesn't take, what's my second favorite? And then you go there after a month or 2, and you realize a month or 2 in the second place, that's really your spot. And so don't try to make decisions about selling your house or something like that when you don't have enough information yet.
Yeah, and most of the time when you start to traveling, you will fall in love to keep traveling.
That's what we love. We're slow travelers. We don't want to stay in one place. And that's another option you have, and it's all in my coursework.
Yes. What are some problems people have to think about now that you didn't have to think about when you left the USA in 2007?
If you haven't caught on yet, I wrote these questions and Chung's helping me, but I'll answer that. Okay, so when I left the USA in 2007, inflation really wasn't a thing, right? So now you have to worry about inflation. I didn't. The other thing that's happening now is AI, artificial intelligence. And if you're older like me, you probably have family members back at home, and in 5 years or 3 years or 10 years, they might have a harder time getting a job because some people will be displaced. So those are the 2 things that have entered the world now that were not happening. They were there potentially in 7, but now they're kind of realistic and people are watching this. And that's what I think my hobby income course is good for. You see, if you not only budget what you need for the next country you're going to move to, but you get below the budget and you find a lifestyle that you like below your budget, and you're able to sock away $500 or $1,000 a month, hopefully $2,000, whatever you can sock away, then you'll be prepared for some inflation. And the other thing is that with artificial intelligence, if you're able to sock a little bit of money away and you're able to use the hobby income course to create even more income, then you'll know a little bit about how the internet works and how to make money online, not only for yourself, but you're able to take care of maybe some of your family and teach them how to do it too. But if you need to start that now, because some of those jobs, being an employee now is not guaranteed anymore. But starting a business, that's something that you can do. And so those are 2 things that the hobby income course will help you with.
How would you solve those problems if you were living in the USA in 2024?
In 2020, if I was leaving next year, this is 2023 now, I would, even before I left, I would start to look at the hobby income course. What will my niche be? What will I do to make money online? What is it I know? And that will help you develop your niche and get things going. And so, because it really took me a few years to get traction, where I'm making more than enough now than we need to travel the world. And so you need to do that a little bit in advance. And so I would start that now. And while I did my research about the places that you'll be most interested in retiring overseas and what your budget and all that, whether or not you should sell your house, how to keep your old phone as you travel the world, have it ring on your computer or your cell phone instead of on a landline or on your cell phone in the US, how to handle online banking, all these things that are in the coursework that will help you with that, but also fight inflation and worry about artificial intelligence.
So the last question is, what kind of people don't just talk about it but take action?
You know what? That's the funny thing. I haven't really found a type. I found people of all shapes and sizes and educations and socioeconomic groups and interest in foreign countries, and some who have traveled, some who have never. There's not really a type of people that would be. You won't find out until you do your exploratory visit if living overseas is for you. That's why I always say don't do anything permanent about your life until you've done your exploratory visits, because that'll tell you whether or not you're the type of person that's going to enjoy living overseas. It's an adventure, but there are some challenges. You've solved a lot of problems in your life that are just kind of second nature to you now. You don't even think about it. You know where to eat, you know where to shop, you know how to solve problems. But when you go overseas, you're going to have some challenges. And for some people, that's an adventure. It's interesting. You can adapt. Other people don't adapt as well. But I don't know that there's a type. I just think there's people that are interested when they go overseas. Everything's fascinating to them. Everything's fun. They love learning about different foods and people and how the world has evolved differently in different parts of the world. And other people, once they get a couple weeks overseas, they don't know what to eat. They don't like it. They just want to go home. And so there's not really a type. You'll have to find out if you're the type, but you can only do that by travel.
Yeah, and the second thing is I think that your ebook is very good because you're including for everything like the safety, the walking distance, and the play.
Good point. Yeah. So my free ebook, which is you can click. It's called "How I Fired My Boss and Traveled the World" for 16 years now. You can read that, and that has a bunch of starter information that'll help you. They'll give you an idea that actually know what I'm talking about, and then you want to take the course if you decide to move forward with it. And the course that'll also be at vagabondbuddha.com. Under courses, you can actually watch the part 1 of it. And then if that looks good to you, you can also look at our membership benefits and what's included. And then there'll be a buy button you'll see on that one. Or I'll put that below too. You can just come over and buy if you're interested. Yeah, thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
See you in the next video.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.